Aloha, everyone. My name is Chelsea Anasio, and I am the moderator for this session titled DOT-HAR Construction and Post-Construction Training. Please use the Q&A section during this presentation to ask any questions you may have. And at the end of the presentation, we will have a few minutes for the speaker to answer your questions. At this time, I'd like to introduce the speaker for this session. Joy Zhang is an environmental engineer at HDOT Harbor's Division Engineering Branch Environmental Section. She is primarily responsible for developing and implementing comprehensive environmental compliance programs to satisfy the division's requirements for compliance with state and federal laws and department policies. Please help me in welcoming Joy.
Great, thank you, Chelsea. All right, and also aloha everyone. Thank you for tuning in this construction and post-construction training presentation prepared by Department of Transportation Harbors Division. Well, take this as a caveat that we'll be sharing a lot of information during the session. Well, it is important for all of us to ensure that best management practices will be properly implemented to minimize the potential pollutants generated during construction and the post-construction activities, and to prevent them from entering our state waters. So clean water is of vital importance to our use, and as well as to the fishing and the tourism industry as well. And further on, it is our responsibility to protect wildlife and introduce many only found here in Hawaii. Our ultimate goal is to ensure that our coastal waters are clean for every living being to enjoy. So here is a quick rundown of our basic regulatory requirement at harbors, which includes Clean Water Act and the related CFR by feds, Hawaiian Administrative Rules 11-54, 55, and the related statutes, and then the 3 MPDS permit issued to Harbor Division as of today. So these regs and permits, along with the consent decree, are the primary drivers for Harbor's SWAMP program. So the NPDS permit issued to harbors require the development, implementation, and the enforcement of our own SWAMP, covering the 6 minimum control measures listed on this slide. So today's training would be focused on construction site runoff control and a post-construction stormwater management for new development and redevelopment. So both program manuals are available online, and here is our web address. Also, you can find it in our booth listed under this virtual conference. So showing below is a snippet from our website listing the menus, checklist, and the forms tailored for Harbor's construction and the post-construction programs. Following the definition in HAR 11-55, construction activities are any activities that disturbs the land, including but not limited to clearing, grading, and excavation. It also includes construction supporting activities such as stockpile, borrow areas, and the staging sites as well. Land disturbance means penetration, turning, moving of the soils, or the resurfacing of pavement with exposure of the base court. This may include construction roads, staging areas, stockpiling, grading, grubbing, and demolition. And please note that this does not include grass cutting or tree trimming. So how exactly can construction activities potentially, impact the environment? So this occurs when the stormwater runoff carries the pollutants from construction site to nearby storm drains or waterways. So once the stormwater has entered the storm drain system, it flows and discharges directly to the adjoining state waters, for example, harbors. And therefore, it is essential to control and manage the potential sources of pollutants before they enter the storm conveyance system. And one potential source of pollutants is from what is called an illicit discharge. And it is any non-stormwater discharge that can poses a risk to the environment. An easy way to remember is that only rain in the drain. The picture on the slide provide some examples of illicit discharge that should be eliminated, such as oil shins or washed paint product and sediment. Common pollutants from construction site can include, sedimentations from urine, excavation, vehicle fluids from the equipment used on site, and the chemicals and aggregates stored on site as well. And also, some other waste from potable toilet, concrete washout, and the littering. And sedimentation is one of the most common pollutants found, in our waterways. So it can be generated through the surface soil erosion or the in situ soil excavation. A construction project may have both short-term and long-term impact to the environment. Without proper BMP implementation, a significant amount of sediment can be discharged. So that is about 35 to 45 tons per acre per calendar year versus only 1 ton for well-grassed areas. So if not properly contained, sediment may fill up storm drains and catch basins, which are designed to carry the stormwater away from roadways and the ground surface, which may causing localized flooding. And also excess nutrients from the sediment can increase the algae growth. It can also cause the water to become turbid and preventing the sunlight from reaching corals and reduce oxygen levels, which can impact the marine life. So as discussed in one of the previous slides, NPDES program is part of the Federal Clean Water Act, and its overall goal is to regulate the discharge of pollutants from point sources, and now also including non-point sources to the receiving water of the United States. So in our state, its administration has been delegated to DOH under HAR 11-54-55. So if your project would disturb 1 acre or more, or is part of a larger common plan of development or sale, it's very likely that your project would be subject to this program requirement. So HAR 11-55 Appendix C outlines the requirement for a regulated construction site. So first, no later than 30 days prior to the start of construction, a notice of intent form C or NOIC with a sweep must be submitted to DOH via, it's an e-permitting portal. This requirement is usually completed during the project design phase. So upon awarding, the contractor shall review and update the sweep and submit a copy to Harbors for review and the final acceptance. Then following the permit issuance, the project owner or the duly authorized representative must notify DOH Clean Water Branch no later than 7 calendar days before the start of the construction activities. And all key members of Stormwater team need to be trained on the BMP implementation as well. So all BMPs, if stated in the plan, need to be installed at the beginning of the construction phase. And finally, once all the construction has been completed and disturbed soil has been fully stabilized, then another notice of cessation should be sent to DOH. So when it comes to record keeping, the permittee must keep all necessary documents on site, which includes an NPDES permit, the sweep, the records of the changes to the sweep, a monthly compliance report, contractor's self-BMP inspection report, and also the corrective action report, if any. And all this document must be signed, by the duly authorized representative. So yeah, just remember, record keeping is a key. HAR 11-55 Appendix C also outlines specific requirements to be included in the sweep, such as the ones showing on these slides. A site map should detail the locations of the potential pollutants such as disturbed earth, stockpiles, and staging areas, which could be used for equipment and chemical storage. So a relatively new requirements to indicate the boundary lines for the buffer area. R11-55 Appendix C also details how frequently a contractor must conduct the self-inspections. So first, you must determine whether your the stormwater from your site discharge to impaired water bodies or not. If so, such as portion of Honolulu Harbor, the inspection must be performed once every 7 days and within 24 hours of any raining events of a quarter-inch or more over a 24-hour period. And this means that the stormwater team is required to monitor and record the daily rain gauge readings on site or from the nearest NOAA weather station, which is available online. If the site is discharging to a non-impaired water body, such as Kalailua Barbers Point Harbor, inspections are required to be conducted either weekly or once every 14 days, with additional inspections conducted within 24 hours of any raining events of quarters or more. That occurs within a 24-hour period. So 11-55 also have some specific requirement for correcting the deficiencies or potential violation that could lead to a violation of water quality. The deficiency is required to be corrected immediately within the same day that is observed. So if the deficiency can be corrected immediately, the reason cannot be corrected immediately. The reasons for the delay must be documented. If significant repairs are required, and the time frame can be extended to 7 days sometimes. Also, you will need to complete the corrective action report within 7 calendar days from the time of discovery. And the DOH also requires that the stabilization measures to be implemented immediately whenever the earth disturbing activities have stopped. The stabilization must be completed within 14 days when it has initiated. But if the work is, for the work if they're near a impaired water body, such as Honolulu Harbor, then it needs to be completed within 7 calendar days. Any circumstances that prevent this project from meeting this requirement should be documented. So the time frame for stabilization does not mean that the seed has to grow within 7 calendar days, but steps should be taken to initiate the stabilization, which include preparing the soil for vegetation, applying mulch, seeding, or just making the arrangement for stabilization. All right, starting with this slide, we'll quickly brush through Harbor's project process. So a typical project under Harbor's jurisdiction will follow the process shown on the slides, which are project scoping, design, project review, construction, and then followed by long-term operation maintenance if necessary. And we will review this phases in detail in the next few slides with a focus on environmental requirement. So during design phase, the project shall be or will be scoped by the design engineers, and the relevant environmental requirement will be identified. So when necessary, a pre-design meeting will be held, and all permits and applicable Harbor's forms should be completed by the design engineer. So these forms include notification forms for project less than 1 acre, and for projects subject to NPDES and NOIC, the design engineers would need to complete the construction design and a post-construction design checklists, along with a post-construction stormwater mitigation plan. So harbors have exempted certain types of project from the program that have shown to have minimal impact to the environment. So this project includes some minor land disturbance on a single lot, some post, pole, sign, and fanning installation, utility repair works, and some surface repair project, and also other maintenance activities as well. So here is a snippet of Harbor's construction site design review checklist, which is available on Harbor's stormwater management website. Following the completion of the design phase, the project will then go out for bid through public solicitation. Following the selection, the construction contractor would then work on updating and finalizing the sweep based upon their specific information and construction means and method. The revised sweep shall be submitted to Harbor's project manager or project engineer, who will then provide a sweep to the Harbor's environmental section for review. So once accepted, the contractor can commence installation of a BMP mirrors, which must be inspected for full acceptance before any other construction activities are allowed to start on the site. So if a project disturbs 1 acre or more and requires an NPDES permit, the sweep needs to be prepared fulfilling the requirement of R11-55 Appendix C as well. The BMPs are required to be implemented during construction activities in order to minimize impact to the environment by managing and controlling the potential pollutants at their sources. So they are structural devices or systems or just a procedure practices that is used to mitigate the discharge of potential stormwater pollutants. It is important to keep in mind that the drain inlet protection is your last line of defense. So additional BMP should be implemented to assist in preventing illicit discharge from occurring. So Harbors has adopted the City County Honolulu BMP manuals for construction, which provides information about the design details that should be followed when applicable. So the BMPs listed here should be incorporated for our project, regardless of the size, when they're applicable. And our program also includes a list of BMPs to be implemented on site for project that disturbs 1 acre or more, such as sediment and erosion control BMPs listed on these slides, and some additional control BMP measures, such as wind erosion and utilization of advanced treatment systems, and also some other non-storm water and waste management. So if you're working on a roadway paving or repair projects, please ensure to implement the BMPs listed on this and the next slides. So I'm not going to reading through all these things, and I hope a copy of a presentation can be downloaded later on and can be shared with everyone. Next, we will discuss the Harbor stormwater BMP inspections as well as expectations of the site during active construction phase. Harbor's stormwater program requires inspections of non-exempt construction sites. These are conducted to identify potential or active discharges of pollutants and ensure these issues would be corrected proactively to stay in compliance and to avoid being cited by the corresponding regulatory agency. So all Harbor's inspections would be conducted by a qualified inspector. So the purpose of initial inspection is to make sure all the proper BMPs will be installed, and any deficiencies or potential violation noted during the inspection should be corrected before the contractor can commence any further construction activities. And then once the construction work starts, Harbors will conduct recurring inspections for the duration of the project. This will occur once every 2 weeks during the wet seasons, which is from October to March, and then once every 2 months from April to September, which we call the dry season. Deficiencies and the potential violations noted during this recurring inspections may lead to enforcement actions if not properly corrected. And usually a copy of the inspection report will be provided to the contractor within 5 calendar days. And a final inspection will occur once the construction work is completed and the site is permanently stabilized. At the same time, this inspection will serve to ensure that the permanent BMPs are properly installed as well. And deficiencies and the potential violations noted during the final inspection must be corrected prior to closing the project. Final payment can be withheld until all corrective actions are completed. And the following slide, few slides will discuss some common findings from harbor's inspections. The first one is the BMP plans are not available or updated. So the BMP plans are sometimes we call it a site-specific BMP plans, and usually provide the basic information about the project site and identifying that which BMPs will be implemented on site. And it should be updated when necessary and must be kept on site or at an easily acceptable location to make it readily available for on-site stormwater teams and also the inspectors. Stabilized entrance clogged with the fine sediment. The tracking of the sediment onto adjacent public road is something that is easily visible both to the inspectors and to the public, and can easily be carried into the nearby storm drains by stormwater runoff, if not cleaned up promptly. Therefore, it is important that construction entrances have proper BMP installed and maintained. And in general, the stabilized entrance should consist of a minimum of 50 by 30 feet and covered with 3 to 6 inches diameter aggregate over a geotextile fabric. And maintenance may need to be constructed regularly throughout the life of the project to remove accumulated sediment. But of course, showing here is just a one type of a stabilized construction entrance. There are some other types, construction entrance that harbors also can consider to incorporate into the project. Silt fences can be used to control the sediment from construction site. However, they must be properly installed and maintained. So if not well maintained, sediment may be carried off-site and result in an illicit discharge. At a glance, a silt fence should be properly installed and maintained by setting the posts on the downstream side of the fence every 6 to 8 feet. And the fabric should be stretched tight, and the fence should be embedded in the ground approximately 6 inches to secure the bottom of the fence. And the goal of the silt fence is to hold the sediment-laden water while promoting the sedimentation behind the fence. So maintenance will be required for accumulated sediment on the silt fence when it reaches like 1/3 of the height of the barrier, such as a biosocks, usually used to set around the foot of the silt fence. And the pictures at the top shows how deteriorated composed biosocks can sometimes, contribute pollutants if not replaced or repaired promptly. Now, basic rules using biosocks include the, first of all, it should be placed on ground and in close contact with the ground surface, and ends of the socks must overlap a minimum 6 inches, and end of the berm should be turned up the slope to aid in containing the sediment. And accumulated sediment must be removed when it reaches 1/3 the height of the berm. And please maintain them, as necessary. Erosion control mattings can be used on the site to stabilize disturbed soil until vegetation, can be established. Geotextile must have a full contact with the ground surface in order to be truly effective. And this may require the removal of large rocks and some other things and the levering off the ground. And the mat must also be properly anchored. This involves trenching in the mat at least 6 inches at the top of the slope, overlapping sections of the mat by 2 to 3 inches, and stapling the mat every 3 feet. Filter fabric can be used to contain potential runoff pollutants and prevent them from discharging into the drain system. And this is considered the last line of defense in terms of pollution prevention. So a common finding during inspection is that inlet filter fabric is, displaced, and contractors should be, conducting frequent inspections to ensure that torn filter fabric be replaced on a timely basis. And also accumulated debris shall be removed as well. Stock cuttings of concrete will generate some fine dust and some other materials that can be easily carried away in the stormwater runoff. So in the instance pictured here, the construction workers are conducting stock cutting operations without using a vacuum system to collect the fine materials for proper disposal. So all construction wastewaters must be properly contained, and this can be accomplished by designating a container on site and then removing the debris once the water has, evaporated. Additionally, a cover may need to be added over the container when the rain is forecasted to prevent the contained wastewater from overflowing. And it is important to remember that the containment may only be filled up to 75% capacity of the container, and the temporary concrete washout facility should be maintained to provide adequate holding capacities with a minimum freeboard of 4 inches for above grade facilities and 12-inch for below grade facilities. Spills and the vehicle leaks are a common source of pollutants on the construction site. And as shown on, in these photos, petroleum products can easily carried away when it rains. Yeah. So vehicle and equipment should be regularly inspected for any potential leaks. And if a leak is observed, ensure you use a drip containment to contain any spill or leak. And also all construction workers should be trained on proper spill response. The spill kit must also be kept on site and be properly stocked. And spills should be immediately reported to Harbor's project manager or the project engineer. Stockpilings, that's another common thing we find during our inspection. So it must be properly contained to be stored at least 50 feet away from any waterways as well. Improper disposal of the paint waste and the painting equipment clean out, can also introduce pollutants to the stormwater as well. And proper containment, such as use of a tarp, should be set up in place to contain any paint drips and chips. Try to mix and also store the paint within the secondary containment, and please dispose the paint waste properly. And hazardous materials must be stored properly on site. And in particular, liquid containers of 55 gallons and above should require a secondary containment. They should also be inspected regularly to ensure that they're in good condition and properly labeled or marked. It is preferred that hazardous material be stored in a covered area to minimize exposure to stormwater. All right, improper solid waste management. Yeah, so this is related to part of the housekeeping and the waste management, and trash and debris basically throughout the construction phase. They can be picked up by stormwater and contribute as a pollutant to adjacent harbor waters. And make it a regular practice at your site to clean up the debris at the end of each working day. And some of the good practice may include remove your debris from the site on a regular basis and place them in a watertight dumpster, and try to locate your dumpster 50 away from the waterway, and also segregate hazardous waste from the recyclable items. throughout the construction phase, enforcement actions can be implemented when necessary to ensure corrective actions would be completed. And the enforcements will reference the harbor's swamp and the construction contractor document and Hawaii's revised statutes and also HAR. And recently, Harbor's also completed an enforcement response plan, and we will reference that particular document in the future as well. And once a regulatory agency, such as DOH, begin their enforcement, there may be some specific penalties associated with, each violation. So this kind of violation can be compounded, each day the violation occurs. And the potential for penalties shown on this slide, can be totally avoided if all parties kind of working together on the construction project, follow the requirement, in our program, and also applying the appropriate Bmps. Okay, all right, move on to Harbor's post-construction program. So our program, post-construction program, is considered a complementary component to the construction site runoff control programs. So through the next few slides, we'll discuss requirement when providing providing the guidance for some specific, project planning, selection, designing of post-construction BMPs to fulfill the NPDES permit and Harbor's swamp requirement. So post-construction BMPs are of equal importance because they will continue to address a potential stormwater pollutants long after construction project has been completed. Another important thing is that if you do include the post-construction BMP, it should be coupled with the operation and the maintenance plan to ensure that it continue to function effectively for the life of the system. Post-construction BMPs must be considered and evaluated for project disturbing land of 1 acre or more. And here are some exceptions, which include, the project only involving maintenance, re-roofing, interior, or some kind of utility works, and also a replacement of damaged pavement. Design engineers would submit the permanent post-construction BMP plan checklist and a post-construction stormwater mitigation plan to Harbor's environmental section for review. And on this slide, it shows a portion of our permanent post-construction BMP plan checklist. And the full copy can be found on our website. The post-construction stormwater mitigation plan, or sometimes we call it PSMP, it begins by completing an existing drainage study of the area. Then the designer will identify the source of potential pollutants that may be present after the site is constructed. Then all this information will be compiled together and into a PSMP. So this table provides more guidance about the types of potential pollutants that may be expected based on the land use. So for example, if a project involving an industrial development, like a container yard, the post-construction BMP would involve, removing sediment, oil and grease, and the dissolved metal, if applicable. So the types of post-construction BMPs are divided into 3 main categories, as a majority of us already know, and namely the low impact development, source control, and treatment control. So LID must be considered and evaluated first, then followed by the source control. And if neither are feasible, then treatment controls must be evaluated. For LID, it involves returning the stormwater runoff on site and treat them as a source rather than a waste. And the goal of the source control is to prevent the potential pollutants from contacting stormwater, such as covering a maintenance area. And treatment controls attempts to remove potential pollutants from the runoff. And this includes BMPs, such as hydrodynamic separators. And please feel free to refer to City County Honolulu's, their stormwater BMP guide, their rules relating to stormwater standards. And as a rule, the sum of volume-based BMPs must capture 1 or 1.5 inch of the stormwater, and for a flow-based BMPs, they must capture and treat 0.4 inch of the rainfall per hour. So this shows one of the common permanent BMPs, which is practical in area where there is existing vegetation, and it should be marked off during construction if practical. And bioswales, meet the objectives of both retaining the stormwater on site and providing some type of a treatment. So they're ideal for places, like along the street parking lot where stormwater needs to be drained from, and can also support vegetation growth. Another BMP designed to retain the stormwater is called a permeable pavement, which is designed to perform the same function that normal pavement does, but also allows the stormwater to infiltrate faster into the ground. And this BMP is often used in paved areas such as driveways and the parking lots. Hydrodynamic separators are designed to treat storm waters as it leaves the site. So as the discharge flows through the system, it allows the solids to settle out or flow to the top, and then clean the waters to be discharged to the receiving water. And this types of system works well in area where solid waste is expected, such as public areas and a loading dock, and is suitable for locations with relatively low groundwater levels. And a filter device, it is ideal for areas where littering can be common, and they also can be fitted with different medias to remove the targeted pollutants. So Harbors has instituted, its stormwater management program to protect our coastal waters and to, achieve compliance at the same time. And this is now a standard business practice for construction, and it should be followed by all involved. So as part of the takeaway, just remember that all projects must be reviewed prior to start. And projects that are of 1 acre or more must consider, including a post-construction BMP if feasible. And inspections can be a great tool to identify problematic areas before resulting in elevated enforcement. And contractors should implement BMPs with the goal of keeping the potential pollutants on site. There's a lot of references available, and please check our booths set up under this virtual conference. And I think this should conclude Harbor's presentation for today, and resonating with the theme for this conference. Let's work together to protect the environment and to protect our harbor waters. And we appreciate it if you could also complete the training survey, which is shared in Harbor's booth as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joy, for your presentation. We are now going to open up the question and answer portion of the session. We have a few minutes left. So if anyone has any questions for Joy, please type them in the Q&A section at this time.
Sorry, I know we just kind of ran through a lot of materials, and there are probably a lot of information you guys have already know, but feel free to ask any question even beyond what we presented over here. All right, I think either I delivered a good presentation or maybe a not clear one. So it sounds like we're good for now.
Okay, thank you so much again, Joy. Just so everyone knows, the last session will begin at 3 p.m. So please return to the sessions tab to see the last session. Don't forget to visit one of our DOT public education booths to obtain your conference certificate. And additionally, there will be a post-conference questionnaire available following the last session worth 500 points upon completion. So be sure to fill that out. Thank you guys so much for attending, and I'll see you at the last session.
Thank you, Chelsea.